In this video I'm showing how I installed a dash cam in a 2024 Honda Prologue. The camera I chose is a Viofo A119 Mini 2. I got it from Amazon for about $130, and I'll leave links down below in the description for this camera, as well as everything else I used on this project. As for why I chose this specific camera, I went to the dashcam subreddit, clicked on recommendations, and it was the top one. As for what's included in the box, you get the camera itself, instructions, some random other junk, USB cable, cigarette lighter adapter, and a small pry tool to help with the plastics. My strategy for the install here is to mount the camera to the windshield on the passenger side, tuck the cable up into the headliner and run it over to the A-pillar, tuck it up underneath of the plastics and bring it around to the weather stripping. I'll tuck the cable underneath of the weather stripping until I get to here, then I'll transition it to be tucked underneath of the plastics on its way to the back seats. Once I get to the back, I'm going to pop the cable out of the plastics and then just be lazy and run it underneath of the floor mats to the USB-C ports that are on the center console. If you have small rowdy kids or you're an Uber driver or something, then this might not be ideal for you. However, I just have this ding-dong riding in the back seat, so this works for us. These ports also turn on and off immediately with the vehicle, so there's no worries about it draining the battery with the camera being constantly connected. To begin, I plugged the cigarette lighter adapter into the socket in the front, as well as the USB cable that was included. Then I took the camera and I installed this 128 gig micro SD card into the slot on the side. Just a quick note on SD cards, make sure you get one that is labeled high endurance, since they tend to hold up better with the repeated overwriting that they see with dash cams. Next I connected the USB cable from the cigarette lighter to the USB-C port on the side. The camera does take a few seconds to boot up, so I'm fast forwarding just a bit. My SD card is also already formatted. If yours is brand new, you'll probably be prompted to format it here. I picked a spot on the windshield where it would have a good view of the road without capturing any of the plastics from the center here. The camera is adjustable here, so you can move it up and down so you have a good view of the road. I gave the windshield a quick wipe down with a paper towel so I'd have a nice clean surface for the camera to adhere to. The kit includes these nifty little static cling strips so you don't have to stick the adhesive straight to your windshield. I peeled the red side off first and then stuck it to the spot on the windshield where I want to mount the camera. I did my best to work out the couple of air bubbles that were trapped under there, and then I peeled off the green side. I peeled the cover off of the two-sided tape, and then carefully positioned the dash cam over the static strip and pressed it into place. Alright, so moving right along here, even though the dash cam did include a USB cable, it wasn't long enough and it wasn't really a good fit to reach the USB-C ports that I wanted to use in the back. So I got this 15-foot cable with USB-C connectors on each end, one of them being a right angle. I disconnected the USB cable from the cigarette lighter, and won't be needing that anymore. I connected the right angle side to the dash cam. The right angle is nice here because it helps to push the cable up into the headliner. Then I fed the cable over to the A-pillar. This was probably the most fiddly part of the project. I thought I would be able to just squeeze the cable between the headliner and the plastic trim on the pillar. This part was definitely harder than expected, but we choose not to do these things because they are easy. We choose to do these things because we thought they would be easy. Eventually I just screwed around enough that the trim popped off, and that made it way easier. The trim piece is just held in place by these little push tabs. It does have cables connected to it for the speakers, so be careful to not pull it out too far. I tucked the cable under the piece of trim and then just pushed it back into place. Then I began feeding the cable underneath of this lip and the weather stripping. I'll fast forward through this part a little bit since I'm not doing anything mind-blowing. Basically, I just kept going along the inside of the door and using my fingers to tuck the cable up underneath of the weather stripping until I got to this part right here. At this point, I brought the cable around to the other side of the plastics. Then I began tucking it between this piece of trim and the carpet. There are a couple spots where it gets a little bit tight, so it helped to use the trim tool that was included to push the cable into place. When I got to the back, I adjusted the passenger seat all the way forward so I'd have more room to work with. And then it was more of the same, just tucking the cable up underneath of the trim pieces in the back. There was a few feet of extra slack left over, so I just coiled it up and placed it underneath of the floor mats. Next, I got two of these little USB-C right angle connectors from Amazon. I used this to connect to the USB ports on the car, just so that it would be a little more flush than having the cable sticking out of there. And that's pretty much all there is to it, my friends. When the car turns on, the camera turns on. And when the car turns off, the camera turns off. There are lots of settings and ways to customize this thing. Most of these are pretty subjective. The only one that I really felt strongly about was the voice notification. I could do without hearing this sound every time the car turns on, so I turned that one off. Other than that, it's a dash cam. If something happens and you want to lock a video to preserve it from being overwritten, you can hit this button. If you want to download the videos, the easiest way is to probably use the phone app. To do that, you just have to press and hold on the Wi-Fi button. Then on your phone you'll want to find the Wi-Fi network that the camera is broadcasting and connect to it. The camera displays the password on the screen. It's 123456778. Then open the Viofo app and it should take you into the camera. You can select this button in the bottom left to view all the recordings. You can stream them directly from the camera here, but in my experience this wasn't very smooth and it paused every couple of seconds. The better option seems to be to use this download link in the top right. On iPhone it asks for permission to your photo gallery. I gave it the bare minimum and then the download began. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Here's some sample footage of driving around in the daytime, and here's some sample footage of driving around at night. I hope this video was helpful if you're also considering installing a dash cam in your Honda Prologue. Hit like if this helped you out, and thanks for watching.